Ema Slavica, and this is my presentation on Buddhism. The colors red, orange, and yellow represent Buddhism. Many people know this, and it's very well known all around the world. When I think of Buddhism, what comes to my head is, orange. So this is why I decided to wear an orange shirt. Around my neck, I have these beads. These beads are called mala beads, and they're used to count prayers or count your breaths during meditation. Usually in these necklaces, there's usually 108 beads. Sometimes there's more or less, but most commonly there's 108. These are the Buddhist symbols. All of these symbols have a different meaning, even though there are so many of them. They are very commonly used all over the whole world, and some people have paintings of them in their house, some people have tattoos of them. They're very known. This symbol right here is the yin and yang symbol. The white part represents femininity, and the black part represents masculinity. There are so many symbols, and they're all beautiful in their own way. This is a map of how Buddhism spread. It started in India, as you can see right here, and spread all over to Asia. Here are the origins of Buddhism. Buddhism began in India in the late 5th century BCE, and it was started by Siddhartha Gautama, who was later known as Buddha, or the Enlightened One. Siddhartha was born into a royal family, and he was wealthy, and his family was wealthy. He was surrounded by luxury, and you may be thinking, what can go wrong? His life was perfect. He was rich. He had all these luxurious things. His life was perfect. But when he encountered old age, he fell into sickness, poverty, and death. He was very troubled by this. He was very confused, so he left his family in search for answers. After years of extreme self-denial, he realized that neither indulgence nor suffering was led to wisdom. Instead, he followed a balanced approach called the middle way. The middle way eventually achieved enlightenment through meditation. So yeah, the middle way is basically just meditation. Buddhism did not begin as a divine revelation, but as a reform movement that broke traditional religious practices, focusing instead on personal insight and experience. After becoming enlightened, the Buddha began teaching others out of compassion. Siddhartha Gautama, later known as the Buddha, he started teaching people all over the world, and many people are inspired by him. They follow his teachings and his religion, Buddhism. Siddhartha Gautama. This picture right here is a picture of Siddhartha Gautama, or known as the Buddha. As you can see, this picture is a very beautiful piece of art. Siddhartha Gautama, who is known as Buddha, he was born around the 5th or 6th century BCE. He was originally a prince, and according to the Buddhist tradition, it was predicted at his birth that he would either become a great ruler or some kind of spiritual leader. So, because of this, his father tried his hardest to protect him. This is why he was surrounded by luxury and wealth his whole life. Well, not his whole life, but in the beginning of his life. However, when Siddhartha encountered old age, he encountered sickness, death, and religious aspect. He realized that suffering was unavoidable and that wealth cannot prevent it. When he figured this out, he was very disturbed. He couldn't believe that wealth and luxury couldn't fix his problems. He was thinking, I'm wealthy, I'm rich, I'm full of luxury. How come I'm suffering? He was very confused by this, so he decided to leave his family and to search for answers. After extreme asceticism and realizing he only caused more suffering, he chose a balanced approach called the middle way. And again, as I mentioned before, this is through deep meditation. He attained enlightenment and became the Buddha, meaning the enlightened one. Buddhism began as a reform movement known as divine revelation, as I said before, and focused on personal insight and experience. After his enlightenment, the Buddha taught others to understand how to overcome suffering. Core beliefs and afterlife. This is a big thing to know in Buddhism. The core beliefs of Buddhism centered on understanding why humans suffer and how the suffering can be overcome. Some people may think, suffering, oh my God, I'm suffering, this is never going to end. But if you follow Buddhism, your suffering will end, sooner or later. It will just take some time, but eventually your problems will go away, it will get better. Buddhism teaches that life often involves suffering or dissatisfaction, which comes from desire, attachment, and wanting things to stay the same around the world. But that world is constantly changing. According to the Buddha, suffering is not permanent, and it can be ending by changing how we think. This is a major way on how to end suffering. If you change the way you think, the way you view things, your suffering will be ended or will be lightened. Also, another way is you can practice mindfulness. Practicing mindfulness is a great way to end suffering. Buddhism also teaches rebirth rather than a permanent heaven or hell. In other religions, like Christianity or Judaism, it involves a heaven or a hell. When you die, you go to heaven or hell. But not in Buddhism. In Buddhism, you get rebirthed. This cycle of birth, death, and rebirth is influenced by karma, meaning that a person's actions are responsible for their afterlife. Or not afterlife, I mean when they get rebirthed. When a person dies, their actions in the past influence this. So that means you better be good. If you act bad, your rebirth will not be good. Also, Buddhism does not focus on a punishment by God or a reward by God. Instead, the ultimate goal is nirvana, which is a state of complete freedom from suffering, released from the cycle of rebirth through understanding mindfulness and ethical living. Buddhists believe it is possible to reach the state of peace and enlightenment. Leadership, inclusion, and lifestyle. Buddhism does not focus on a creator, or a god, or a divine leader, or whatever you would call it. Instead, it teaches that individuals are responsible for their own actions. People are responsible for how they act. It's not, they don't believe in a god or in a specific like a living or whatever. They focus on themselves. They think of their own actions. There is no special priestly caste that acts as a meditator between humans and the divine. Monks and nuns serve as teachers and guides who help explain Buddhist teachings, but they do not have a special spiritual powers over others. Buddhism is also a very inclusive religion. Other religions have specific people who follow the religions in specific cultures or in specific places, like regions. Not Buddhism. Buddhism, you are able to follow this religion no matter where you live, no matter what's your culture. And it's open to all people. Anyone all over the world can follow this religion. Anyone practices it. Also, another very important part of Buddhism is meditation. This is one of the biggest parts of Buddhism. It basically is how to solve your problems by meditating. Meditating is a huge, huge, huge part. Also, another important part of Buddhism is that it does not encourage complete withdrawal from the world. Instead, Buddhism promotes a balanced and mindful lifestyle, known as the middle way. The middle way, again, is deep meditation, but it also encourages ethical behavior and self-discipline and awareness, while still actively participating in everyday life. The Four Noble Truths. This is a very huge, important part of Buddhism. The Four Noble Truths are the foundation of Buddhist teaching and explain how the Buddha understood human suffering. There are four noble truths, so that means there are 4 reasons. The first noble truth states that life involves suffering, which includes physical pain, emotional pain, anything. The second noble truth explains that suffering is also caused by desire and dissatisfaction. and wanting things to last forever, or wishing life were different than it is. This is basically saying that because of your desire or because you're unhappy and you're dissatisfied, this is why you're suffering. This is the very important part, and this is the second noble truth. The third noble truth teaches that suffering can be ended. This is a great part. You may think, oh, I'm suffering, oh, I'm doing this, but suffering can be ended. And ending desire and suffering. Freedom is possible. This is a great part. It's why you should follow Buddhism. You can end your suffering. Freedom is the answer. Freedom is possible. Eightfold Path also is what leads to freedom. By understanding causes of suffering and learning to let go of excessive desire and attachments, Buddhists believe that people can live more peacefully and eventually reach nirvana, a state of complete freedom from suffering. I mentioned this before, the Eightfold Path, but let's go more into depth on this. The Eightfold Path is basically just like a practical guide in Buddhism that shows how to live a way that reduces suffering and leads towards enlightenment. It's divided into three main ideas. It focuses on wisdom, ethical behavior, and mental discipline. Right understanding and right intention focus on developing wisdom by seeing the world clearly and having correct motivations. Right speech, right action, right livelihood guide ethical behavior and coordinate people to speak truthfully, act kindly, and earn a living without causing harm to others. The final parts, right mindfulness and right concentration, focus on mental discipline through awareness and meditation. These practices help individuals stay present, control negative thoughts, and develop inner peace. This is very important. You develop inner peace. It's all in your mind. If you have inner peace, then your suffering is ended. Right mindfulness and awareness, and right concentration through meditation. As you can tell, meditation is a huge part. Very, very important. By following this path, Buddhists believe that people can reduce attachment, make better choices, and reach closer to nirvana. The spread of Buddhism. Buddhism has started in India, but it's spread all over Asia. It spread in Sri Lanka, Southeast Asia, China, Korea, Japan, and Tibet. Unlike some religions, Buddhism was not spread through military conquest. Instead, it spread peacefully through trade routes, cultural exchange, and missionaries. Merchants carried Buddhist ideas along with goods, and monks traveled to teach Buddha's message. Rulers such as the ruler Ashoka helped spread Buddhism by supporting the missionaries and building monasteries. This peaceful spread helped Buddhism adapt to different cultures and different regions. Divisions and sects. As Buddhism spread to different regions, differences in interpretation and practices led to the formation of different branches or sects. The three major branches are Theravada Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, and Vajrayana Buddhism. Theravada focuses on the early teachings and monastic life, while Mahayana Buddhism emphasizes compassion and helping others reach enlightenment. And now finally, last but not least, Vajrayana developed unique rituals and practices, especially in Tibet. Even though these branches differ in practices and cultural expressions, they all share core teachings of the Buddha, including the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. Now, these two pictures right here, these are the maps of how Buddhism spread. As you can see, it started right here in India, spread all throughout here, spread all throughout Asia. But then also, later on, Buddhism spread through all over the world. Now there's so many people who practice Buddhism, no matter where you're from. You can be from the US, you can be from anywhere, Canada, there's still so many people. And now Buddhism is one of the worldwide known religions. And it's very important in history. and traditions. When Buddhism entered new regions, it did not usually replace existing beliefs. Instead, it blended with local traditions and cultures. When Buddhism moved to its new places like Asia, instead of completely changing its laws or changing the way, like meditation and very important stuff of Buddhism, it didn't change it. It adapted to its cultures. There might have been small little tweaks or small little changes, but overall, it stayed mostly the same. In India, Buddhism shared ideas with Hinduism, while in China, it mixed with Taoist beliefs and practices. Local customs, rituals, and artistic styles were incorporated into Buddhist practice, which helped Buddhism spread more easily. This flexibility allowed Buddhism to survive in many different cultures while still keeping the same core teachings. The role of women. The role of women. This is very, very important in Buddhism. In many religions, women did not have big opportunities or a lot of jobs that they were offered. But instead, Buddhism offered many of opportunities for women. They got to do many things, as, for example, they got the opportunity to become nuns. However, the role in Buddhism greatly depended on the region and culture where you were from. In some regions who practiced Buddhism, women had more opportunity, like to become nuns, as I said before. But in others, women did not have that many opportunities at all. Some women had greater religious freedom, while others were more limited, and this was due to social norms. Many women practiced Buddhism as lay followers, supporting monasteries and participating in religious life. Overall, Buddhism did not enforce a single view of women, but adapted to the cultures it entered. That's the main idea. The main idea is that women adapted to the cultures it entered. So in one culture, women had more opportunities, and the other culture, not so much. Now, this is the political impact. Buddhism had a huge impact on the political views. Buddhism affected political views in different ways, depending on the region. Some rulers supported Buddhism. They thought it was great. They thought it was peaceful. They thought they had morality and social harmony. Monasteries often gained influence because they served as centers of learning and community life. However, in some cases, Buddhist monks were seen as a threat to political authority because they lived outside of traditional power structures. As a result, Buddhism was sometimes restricted or prosecuted. Overall, its political impact varied widely through what region you were in. In simple terms, Buddhism in some places was greatly supported. They loved it. They loved Buddhism. But in other places, depending on the culture, they thought it was a threat. They did not like it. They did not support it. Change over time and development. Buddhism had a great high change over time. After the Buddha's death, his teachings were originally passed down orally, means through communication, through speaking. Villagers would talk to each other, spread the religion, and spread the teachings around. Over time, different interpretations led to the formation of new schools of Buddhism. Also, after it started being passed on orally, it got spread through sacred texts. People would write about Buddhism. They would make writings about it, and it would get spread. This led to even more people starting to practice Buddhism. As Buddhism spread to different regions, practices and rituals were adapted to fit local cultures, beliefs, and traditions. These changes helped Buddhism survive and grow in many parts of the world, even as it moved far from its original setting in India. Again, started in India, spread to all over the world. It grew. Over time, Buddhism kept growing and growing and growing. And today, it is such a big religion. Almost anybody has heard of Buddhism. When you hear Buddhism, what do you think? Sounds pretty familiar, right? Yeah, because it's pretty popular. Change over time. Impact and today. Today, Buddhism is a long-lasting religion. It is going well and strong, even today. especially across Asia where it shapes art and architecture, ethics, and philosophy. Today, Buddhism is still widely practiced by individuals, many of them. Everybody, women and men, no matter where you're from, can practice Buddhism. It shapes art and architecture. There are many pieces of art, like sculptures, paintings, like walls of Buddhism stuff, and so many beautiful pieces of artwork that are all because of Buddhism. There's also a lot of writings of Buddhism, so many paragraphs, so many texts, sacred texts, really beautiful. There are even museums that you can go visit Buddhist art. And this also influenced ethics and philosophy. Today, Buddhism is still widely spread. Buddhist practices such as meditation and mindfulness have become popular around the world, even among people who do not formally identify as Buddhists. This shows Buddhism continues to influence both religious and non-religious communities today. Here is a question that many people ask. Even when I first started learning about Buddhism, I even had this question myself. The question is, would the Buddha recognize Buddhism today? We all know that the Buddha died a while ago, a really long time ago. But if the Buddha was alive today and he saw his religion, would he recognize it or would it not ring a bell? What do you think? If the Buddha were still alive today, he would likely recognize the core teachings of Buddhism, such as the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path. While many cultural practices, rituals, traditions have changed as Buddhism spread to different regions. But still the central goal of ending suffering and reaching nirvana has remained the same. Although Buddhism now exists in many different forms, its fundamental message still stays the same. So, the answer to this question is yes and no. Buddha does recognize it, but there are still some changes. And this is my bibliography. This shows all the websites that I used in creating this slideshow. There are, I'm pretty sure, 4 or 5 of them. These websites really helped me to learn all the information. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. Bye!